Most weeks we have a community moment, which is where somebody from our own community comes up and shares a thought or amusing or something they've been reading or something like that. That lasts for about 3 to 10 minutes. And this week we have Sasha Arnold here to talk about raising a bilingual child. So with no further ado, let's welcome Sasha to the stage.
Very good. Thank you very much for having me today. I would like to speak today about raising a bilingual child. When James and I, with my husband, about 5 years ago, welcomed our first child in a family, we wanted to discuss whether we wanted to raise him bilingual. And we started researching the benefits. Are there any benefits to being bilingual? And it turned out there are a lot. And let me share just some of them with you. And let me mention the most important one that are for us were the crucial ones why we made that choice. So number one, of course, is the ability to communicate with the extended family. My son's grandma and great-grandpa and great-grandma. Then open-mindedness and acceptance, and hand in hand with it goes the global thinking and the let's say, the ability to think that there is one more way to solve a problem. Future job opportunities, of course. Then being a language-friendly learner, which means you have a much easier time later in life to learn a third and a fourth and a fifth language. A more diverse cultural upbringing, of course. When you teach your child the language, you teach your child a whole new culture through books, songs, games, whatever. The next one is an increased ability to focus. So the scientists have shown that because the bilingual children constantly switch between two languages, they have a much easier time to zero in on a task because they have to block in the wrong counterpart in the other language and focus on the word that they need at the very moment. So hand in hand with it goes the neuroplasticity. So studies have shown there is more white matter in the brain that connecting the two hemispheres in the brain of the bilingual kids. Thus, there is a more area for brain network connectivity. And as a result, there is a delayed onset of Alzheimer's disease in bilinguals versus the monolinguals. So how to do it? How do you raise a bilingual child? Turns out there are three main methods you can do it. And you can adapt them to your family as much as you want to. So the first and the most common method that we use as well is called one parent, one language, OPOL. It's just what it sounds. Each parent speaks to a child in their own language. Never, ever addresses the child in a different language. The child is supposed to respond in a language he is addressed to. If the child responds in the wrong language, the parent usually corrects him. So the benefits, for me, far outweigh the disadvantages. Of course, the child very quickly will learn learn who to speak with in which language. And since each language is spoken by a native speaker, the child will pick up each language to a native level. One disadvantage is that the minority language is not spoken by a primary caregiver. Say it's spoken by somebody who is far away a lot on business trips, like a dad. They might not get as much exposure. So the language might become a passive language, which means the child understands everything but responds in a community language. The next method is called MLAH, Minority Language at Home. This method is usually used by immigrants, expats, like a family of immigrants or a family of expats. They speak the minority language at home, the whole family, but when out in the community or at school, the child speaks the majority or the community language. The advantages of that there is one language for the whole family, so they don't have to switch back and forth constantly. And the other one is really strengthens the minority language because the kids get a lot of exposure to it at home. One disadvantage is that when starting school, they might lag a little behind their peers in the community language. So they might need to join, say, in America ESL class. Or the other little disadvantages, sometimes they might feel a little different or weird when they join a school. And this way, the parents really have to make him proud of being bilingual, of being who they are. And the last method is called context, or time and place. So parents use this method in order to give a certain language that's not getting enough exposure, more exposure. For example, they choose one day of the week, or certain time of the day, or certain room in the house, and speak a different language in that setting. So the advantage is that children will learn very quickly where to speak which language, at what time of the day, at what time of the week, and who with. And they will understand also the different languages needed to be spoken in different situations. But for me, the disadvantages here outweigh the advantages because there's no really consistency. And of course, the other minority language does not get as much exposure. It's usually not an equal exposure. Now, I would like to speak a little bit about our approach, what we do in our family, and what method have we adapted, and how have we adapted it. So, for this little monkey that you can see in the picture, we use the one parent, one language. James only speaks to him in English. I only speak to him in Russian. We never ever address him in a different language. James sometimes addresses him in Russian, but for the minority language, it's okay to get more exposure. For the majority language, it's preferably not to get overexposed. Then we, of course, enrolled him in a Russian immersion preschool to give him even more exposure. We do books every day. Bilingual kids, it's important to read them books every day, especially in the minority language. The more books they read, the bigger the vocabulary are, and it's crucial for language learning process. Music is very important because it's repetitive. The same lyrics repeat over and over again, and most children can sing a tune before they can even speak. So, and also music can go with you anywhere, say in the car. So that's a great way to expose your child to another language. Playgroups. Playgroups are also pretty crucial in enriching your child's minority language. The reason why they're so important is the child needs to know that the language is not dead. It's not your mom is the only one that's speaking that weird language. There's a whole community behind it, and then, of course, there's a whole country behind it. So it's very important to find a play group, and it's important to ask the members of the play group to only speak that minority language to your child. Otherwise, the children will not get as much exposure and switch to the majority language. And also, you can discuss and share ideas with other moms raising bilingual children while the children are happily playing in this language. Also, I found some extracurricular activities for him, like dance, painting classes. I'm sure you can find lots and lots of bilingual instructors in every area, so that'd be a great addition to your learning process. And last but not least, is phone and Skype calls with family and friends in Russia that are monolingual. Thus, he has no other choice but use a minority language. Those are also very, very important. So that's it for me for today. Thank you so much. Let me know if you have any questions. Yes, please. Yes, please. Yeah. It is, for me it is. He knows how to write in Russian and read a little bit in Russian. He is not as familiar with the English alphabet yet. Yes, but that's okay. That's what I wanted because it's harder. I wanted to introduce it first.
And thank you so much for that. If you have any other questions, I'm sure you can talk to Sasha later.